yes, I give the intro, Mata.
Hari Bol. Yeah.
Mataji today with us to actually give us some solace and comfort in this time of, the separation we all are feeling. Just a brief introduction about Mataji. Sangita Mataji, she joined the ISKCON movement in 1972, and she was twice initiated by Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles, where she, actually cared for the deities for several years. In 1979, Mataji co-founded the Krishna Conscious Elementary School at ISKCON's Honolulu Center, where she taught for several years. Later, she helped establish the long-running Hare Krishna Sunday School at ISKCON's Philadelphia Temple, where she taught for 15 years. In addition, she co-authored ISKCON's Hare Krishna Sunday School 9-year curriculum, now used in ISKCON Sunday schools worldwide and distributed by ISKCON Education Ministry. In order to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's personal instruction to her, you should write books for children. In 2000, after receiving her degree as a registered nurse and specializing in hospice and palliative care, Sangita Mataji co-founded the non-profit organization Vaishnava's Care, Counseling Assistance Resource and Education. That's the abbreviation for it, for the terminally ill and their family. In addition to writing 7 articles on hospice care that were published in various nursing journals, Sangita Mataji is the author of the book, The Final Journey, Complete Hospice Care for Departing Vaishnavas. This is a hands-on text on the care of terminally ill loved ones. For 15 years, she has traveled through North America and India, giving hospice seminars and workshops. For almost a decade, Sangita Mataji worked with Giriraj Swami Maharaj in the building of Bhaktivedanta Hospice in Vrindavan, India. She wrote an extensive curriculum to teach the staff nurses and nursing assistants who work in this 40,000 square foot hospice facility. Sangita Mataji is acknowledged as being the international pioneer in end-of-life care in our ISKCON Krishna consciousness movement. She currently resides in Philadelphia with her husband, Vamana Dev Prabhu. Once again, I would like to welcome Mataji to the call, and Mataji, please take over. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I'd like to thank Sugasagari Mataji for inviting me to be here. And thank you to everyone who's here this morning. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Pacharna Vishesha Shunyavadi Vaskachari Shatarane Vanchakopa Turivastra Kipasindhu Vedo Chapatitinam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So I first went to Houston Temple in 2000 to give my first hospice seminar. And Houston was actually the first Vaishnava's care team that I founded. And thanks to Kalindi, Devi Dasi, who called me recently and told me she had relocated to another state, she kept that team going for many, many years. And do we still have a team there? Can anyone tell me? Anyone on that side?
In Houston, Mataji, yes, Mataji, it's kind of in a little dormant state, but the Vaishnava care team is still there, Mataji, but it's not very active at the moment. But
okay, well, now's the time to fire it up again, because there's a need in your community. Can we say what the need is for those that are in other countries? Does everyone on the call know the situation?
I think most of them are aware, Mataji, because there have been quite a few announcements on Bhakti Sangha regarding, the passing away of Prabhuji. Actually, they are from Chicago. I mean, they live in His wife lives in Chicago now, and he also was there. So
Oh, so it happened in Chicago, not Houston.
no, Mataji, this is part of the Bhakti Sangha group. Like we are a group of devotees all over America and other countries, and we have these calls, and so it's.
So, but where's the devotee that just passed away? Where was he?
Yeah, he was in Chicago, Mataji.
Okay. Okay. I was under the impression they lived in Houston. But anyway, it's a very unfortunate event. And I was just on Prabhupada's disappearance day, which was recently, as you all know. We were listening at the Philadelphia Temple to a video of 3 of my godbrothers that were present when Prabhupada was at the end of his Leela on the planet. He was in Vrindavan and he was literally on his deathbed. And and one of my godbrothers, I can't remember his name. I didn't know him personally. I don't know him personally, but he was saying how Srila Prabhupada, he looked around the room and devotees were crying, the men as well as the women, and he asked why they were crying. And they said, because we don't know what we're going to do when you're gone, Prabhupada. And he said, I'll never be gone. I'll never be gone. I'll forever be present in my books, and I will forever be in communication with my devotees within the heart, and I will forever be in association with my devotees in my books. And then he said, and then I will come to my disciples in their dreams. And this devotee swears to that he said that. He said, I will come to them in their dreams. And then he said something that I've never heard that he said before. And he said, I am an old man, and so it's natural for me to die. He said, when a younger person dies, it's a mistake. He used that word, it's a mistake. And, we all know that Krishna doesn't make mistakes. So I took it to mean that it's unnatural. It's unnatural for a child to die before the parents. It's unnatural for someone to leave, a spouse to leave in their 30s. It's unnatural. If it's a husband, it's unnatural for the wife to be widowed in her 30s. And I think that's the situation we're speaking about. And it's just unnatural for if it's the husband, the husband or the wife to go and leave the spouse, alone at such a young age, either way, either spouse. And I think that's more what Prabhupada meant when he said it's a mistake. It's unnatural. And yeah. So, we all know at a certain age that, somebody's going to leave the body. The body's like 97, they're going to leave. So Prabhupada, there were other things he said too about when a child left, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Can I get the PowerPoint on here? Sika Sagari Prabhu?
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji,
ma'am.
you have the permission. So you can please go ahead and share your PowerPoint.
Okay. So Okay, so you can see it now? Everyone can see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to call this little grief talk, Understanding Loss and Grief When a Vaishnava Departs from This World. And we all know that there's many other ways to experience grief and loss. And this entire year has been so crazy in the world. You know, we're just surrounded with numbers and fantastic numbers of people that are dying every single day all over the world. I mean, it's just incredible amounts of people from COVID. And, you know, in that sense, I think so many people in this world are grieving on a daily basis. We're just surrounded by this. And yes, we as devotees understand karma and, you know, like that, but we are also human. And it's okay to feel a type of loss when we, you know, look at a newspaper or read the news online or, you know, whatever, watch the news. I mean, we're going through tremendous tragedies in this world this year. And I remember listening to Srila Prabhupada countless times discuss leadership in Kali Yuga and what we will be facing with presidents and leaders and dictators that will come during this age of Kali. And I was only about 17, 18 years old. And I remember sitting there in Los Angeles temple and thinking, oh, this won't happen in my lifetime. You know, this will probably happen in another 1,000 years, you know, and here I am, you know, and look at what's going on in the, you know, leaderships today in this world. I mean, it's just become appalling. And the division and the wide gap between people and how they think, you know. So it's just incredible losses and grief that this world is experiencing this year, many types. And of course, our Vaishnava's Care Project is dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. We began in well, it was a thought and a discussion in 1999. And then we actually became an official nonprofit tax exempt organization in 2000. So these are some facts about grief. If we can move over our pictures just a little bit, is there a way to do that? Whoever's, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Facts about grief. So number one is, can we like go around and somebody can read one of them and then we'll discuss it? Can we do that?
Sure, Mataji. I'll go ahead with the first one. There
Okay.
is no right or wrong way to grieve. No two people grieve alike.
Yeah, they use the example of no two people have the same fingerprint, you know, no two snowflakes are the same. You know, if you stick them under the microscope and freeze them that long enough that you can look at them, you know, there's no two snowflakes that are alike either. So, you know, people grieve in their own way. And grieving, you know, has a lot to do with our personalities, our past conditioning, not just from this life, but all our lives. If you think about that, we take with us, okay, the same subtle body, birth after birth after birth. So the same mind and false ego and intelligence go with us in every single birth. Okay. And so that same mind, you know, is with us. And helps us to um, think a certain way. So of course it's going to affect the way we grieve and feel loss when we lose a loved one or a friend in this life. Lord Buddha, an incarnation of Lord Krishna, once said that if we take all this, did I say this before at the beginning? Somebody? No, right? So if you take all of the skeletons of all of the births that we've taken and we pile them one on top of the other, this is just our births, not everybody in the universe. This is just the births that we've taken. If you pile those skeletons one on top of the other, it would block the sun. That's how many births we've taken. Prabhupada would refer to it as we've been here in the material world practically since time immemorial. Practically since time immemorial. It's been so long, it seems like forever, you know, so that all that conditioning goes with us into how we do everything. So, you know, even how we grieve. All right. So number 2, somebody?
We need to accept.
Go ahead.
What a gentleman. Go ahead, somebody.
We need to accept this in ourselves. We need to accept this in ourselves as well as in others.
Yeah, if we're the ones that are, if we're the one who is grieving for somebody, okay, we need to accept that, you know, maybe we'll grieve, we'll say, wow, so-and-so Prabhu didn't grieve like this when his father died. He didn't die like this when his, you know, brother died. You know, well, okay, maybe he didn't, maybe she didn't. You know, maybe your god sister didn't grieve like you did, you know, when she lost her sister or whatever, whoever. But that's okay, because remember, no two fingerprints are the same. So, you know, no two grieving is the same. So accept that in yourself and accept that in others when you see them grieving. All right, it's a no judgment zone. We can't judge anyone else because we don't know how we're going to act when it's our turn to lose that relationship as well. Number 3.
Can I read it? Can I read it, Mataji?
Yes, you can.
Grief is not a problem to be solved or resolved.
That's right. How old are you?
I'm 8 years old, Mataji.
And what is your name?
My name is Pranav.
Jenna?
Pranav.
Oh, Brianna?
Pranav Mataji, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. That's a nice name, and you're a good reader. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, it's not a problem that we have to solve. Like, you know, it's a natural state of being when we lose someone that we love. Okay. It's a natural state of sadness. Number 5.
The process cannot be hurried by friends or family, however well-meaning their desire is to relieve the grief's anguish.
The griever's anguish, yeah. Like you'll be grieving and then, you know, going through your what I like to call a healing journey instead of a griever's journey. Okay, you're on your healer's journey. You're trying to heal. You can call it a healing journey, whatever makes you feel like you're you're working the process. Okay, it's they sometimes call it grief work, and they do that for a reason because you're really working at it. and well-meaning friends and family will come over and say, but you've been doing this like 3-4 months already, Prabhu, come on, don't you think you should kind of speed things up a little? You need to get back into your life, and that's 3-4 months is nothing when you've lost a spouse or a parent or a sibling or a best friend, or a grandparent. Even if you have a very close relationship with someone, what's 3 or 4 months? Nothing. You're just beginning to work it through it. Some grief experts say that you're really not beginning to start your grief work until 2 years after the loved one has died. You're just beginning to understand and process that he or she is really gone. So they might want to hurry you through it, but just ask them, please don't hurry me through this. I need to go through it in the way that I need it. This is my grief process. It's okay to say that. They just don't realize, Okay, number 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 6. Sorry. Can somebody read?
Adjustment takes longer than most people realize. 2 years.
Yeah. And 2 years is meaning what I just said, that some grief experts say just after 2 years after the loss, you're just processing it. And then you're beginning to do the work, to get serious about it, because you're still kind of, in a state of shock, really. I mean, not a shock like it just happened yesterday kind of shock, but it takes a long time to process. And the goal of grief is what? The goal of grief is to come to a state where you can live your life in a fulfilling way without that person present any longer. That's the goal. And it's not easy to get from point A to point B. Okay, it's not easy. To the degree that you loved that person, that's to the degree you will grieve. Okay, and we're going to talk about other things. We don't just grieve people we love, we also grieve people we hated. And we're going to talk about that in a little while, why we do that. Okay, number 7.
We need to accept whatever form it takes in ourselves and in others. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't accept ourselves in anything in life, then how can we accept other people? So here we are trying to accept ourselves in grief, so we have to accept ourselves if we want other people to accept us. Yeah, makes sense. Number 8.
Hare Krishna. We
Right.
can all benefit from learning how to respond to grief in ways that don't prolong, intensify, or dismiss or minimize the pain.
Yeah, this is a huge, thank you. This is a huge one, huge, okay? Because we have to learn how to sit with the griever, okay, the bereaved person, and not say anything that makes them feel worse, okay, that intensifies their grief. Like, I don't know how you're going to do this, Mataji. You've got 10 children. You don't own your own home. You can't pay the rent. And I don't know how you're going to raise all those kids by yourself. Oh my God. She's just widowed and you come in and say something like that, you're going to make her feel like, she just wants to jump off the roof. That's going to make her feel so much worse. So, of course, we don't say things like, I don't know how you're going to get through this. No. Okay. I think everybody knows with common sense not to say things like that. And you don't want to look at number 8. You don't want to say anything to prolong their grief, you know, like what would prolong it? I don't think, you know, the husband who just lost his wife. I think I'm going to get involved with John Mashtami next month. I'm going to go over, I'm going to volunteer my services. I'm going to, you know, hang up decorations and all this. And you say, but Prabhu, you just lost your wife like 2 months ago. Do you really think you should do such a thing now? I think you should just wait until you get involved in those kinds of things, you know. And they're like, he's going, oh, really? Well, I guess it wouldn't look very good if I was over there doing all that and having fun and smiling and laughing and talking to people. So I guess I'll just stay home this year, maybe next year. You're just prolonging his grief time. You know, he's feeling that he could go do that. It's been a couple of months since his wife died, and you're talking him out of it. Makes sense, right? Okay, or you're dismissing or minimizing his pain. You know, you go over there to visit him and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's been so hard since my wife died. I miss her every day. I think about her all day. The nighttime is worse. Something about the darkness. I just feel so depressed at night. I start to cry. And you say something to dismiss or minimize the pain. You say, I think you're making too much of this. You know, she wasn't her body, Prabhu, right? Believe me, it's being said all over our movement. Things like this are being said. She wasn't her body. Your mother wasn't her body. Why are you crying so much? It's still being said. In 2020, it's still being said. I mean, when we were young, you know, in the 1970s as a movement, we were very immature as far as death and dying. Well, as far as a lot of things go, but definitely as far as death and dying. We were so young. I mean, I was just a teenager. And a lot of devotees that were the senior devotees, they were like 20. We didn't know what to do when somebody died. In my book, The Final Journey, I write about, I was a pujari in Los Angeles temple, and there was a couple there that were also Prabhupada disciples. And the wife, they didn't have any kids. They were kind of loners, I remember. And they, anyway, she wound up killing herself, seemingly out of the blue, you know, but I'm sure there were signs of it. I just didn't know them very well. And so she killed herself. I want to say she shot herself, but don't quote me on that one. But anyway, after her husband left the Association of Devotees, a devotee ran into him and asked him why he left Krishna consciousness. And I don't know if he left Krishna consciousness. I know he left the temple. And in those days, if you moved out of the temple, you were blooped, as Srila Prabhupada called it, blooped. He said, what happens when you drop something into the water? Bloop. It just bloop like that. That's the noise it makes, bloop. So that's what he said. When somebody falls down from Krishna consciousness, they fall back into the ocean of material world and they bloop. Okay, so the devotee asked him, you know, how come you blooped? And he said, because my wife committed suicide and no one bothered to ask me how I was doing. And I can use the excuse, I was just a teenager, or the oldest devotee, including our GBC, was probably only 27, you know, like that. I could go on using excuses like that, but I feel really bad till this day that that happened. And this was in the very early 1970s. And I feel really bad that I wasn't nicer to this woman, that that I, even at a young age, wasn't sensitive enough to see what was going on, and that we didn't offer anything to her husband after it happened, not even friendship. So this is very, very, very important in our movement. This was 45, 48 years ago. And I think we've come further than that, or at least we should be coming further than that. Okay, so number 9. Can someone read number 9?
Hare Krishna. Grief cannot fit into a fixed time frame.
Yeah, nobody can say to you, okay, it's been from here to here, you have to be, done with your grief in this amount of time, or it's abnormal. Not so. Okay, but we will get to complicated grief and what that means in a little bit. Number 10.
Hare Krishna. Make a special effort to regain your spirituality when you are grieving.
Yeah. When you lose someone that's dear to you and you're going through your grieving, make sure you still go to the doctor, go have your checkup. Because we tend to not sleep enough or sleep too much, or not eat enough, or we tend to eat junk food. Instead of having a healthy dinner, you'll sit down to a bag of chips. It's just people tend to do that. They're stressed out and they just don't eat right, sleep right. They don't go for a walk. They don't sit out in the sun. They just kind of stay in a dark room. And so you really need to take care of yourself physically, and you really need to take care of yourself spiritually. And if your good friend is grieving, make sure you help him or her in those ways. Remind them that, when was the last time you went to the doctor, just to have a yearly checkup. And if they say, oh God, I don't even remember, it's been like 10 years. Okay, do you have a doctor? Can I help you to find a doctor? Let's call them up and I'll make the appointment, and I'll drive you that day. Okay, like people who are grieving need real solutions, not kind of this ethereal offer of help. Like, if you need anything, call me. Okay, I guarantee you they will probably never call you. Nobody wants to bother you. They don't want to be a burden. Okay. And when you're depressed, that's the last thing you want to do is call up somebody. So, so if you say, okay, right now, let's get a calendar and call your doctor and set up an appointment. Okay, let's do it. All right. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to write it on the calendar in your kitchen. And then I'm going to come and pick you up that day and drive you to the appointment. I guarantee you that kind of help is so needed. And then also, like how you're doing with groceries. Well, I'm not really that hungry. Okay. I want to make a list of, everything that you like to eat when you're hungry. And then I can go grocery shopping for you every Tuesday, whatever day, and give them a day and be there, be there. Either they can come with you, you could drive them, or you can just get a list from them and go pick up some things. But those kinds of practical kinds of help, it just means the world to someone who's crying all day, missing a husband or a wife or a mother or a sibling, whoever. It means so much to them to have something tangible, oh, every Tuesday, so-and-so is going to come over and help me get my groceries. Okay. So offer practical help. So this is, is there any way for me to get this back to on the side? Here. I only have me up here, but okay. Okay, so this is has anybody ever heard of Dr. Elisabeth Kubler-Ross? Anybody working in the medical field right now? Mental health field? No? Okay, she was a huge psychologist who, after she took care of 1,000 dying patients, she came up with the idea that there are 5 stages of loss and grief. And it's felt by the patient who is dying, and it's felt by the family who's also right there by the bedside with their loved one who's dying. Okay. And these stages are not felt by every dying patient and family. It's, but most dying patients and family will go through these, not necessarily in the same order. Okay, they're not linear. In other words, you don't start with denial and then always go to anger, then always go to depression, and always go to bargaining, and then you accept it, and then life is just wonderful, and then you die, and everybody goes back to Godhead, and it's like a wonderful thing. No, it doesn't work like that, okay? It's more in a circle, and sometimes you can repeat the same ones over and over again. And the idea is that when you're first told that you have a terminal illness, I'm just going to say cancer, okay? There's a zillion other terminal diseases you can have, but let's just use cancer, okay? And usually the first reaction you will get, I'm sorry, as a patient might be denial, right? Oh, the doctor's wrong. He's so stupid. He doesn't know anything. I think he didn't even have the right file. I think he was looking at somebody else's chart, not mine. Okay. And then you're just like, no, I'm going to go get another opinion. Okay. It's your right. Go get a second opinion. That doctor's stupid too. He doesn't know anything. I don't have cancer this bad. I'm still going to live. All this. Okay. On and on and on and on. Until what happens? Until the disease, your cancer, gets worse. And it's not getting any better. And you're getting weaker. And you're in pain. And you can't hardly walk. And what's going on? Oh my God, I'm probably dying. The doctors are right. I guess Dr. Stupid is not that stupid, okay? And I was the one that was foolish. I should have listened. Now I wasted all these months being so in denial that I have to start working on this? Why am I so stubborn, and I'm so mad, and now I'm so angry. I'm angry at the whole world, right? And why did you bring me this salty doll? How could you be like this? I can't believe you say you're a caregiver. I can't believe you just brought me all this salt in the doll. Okay. What does that do to the patient caregiver relationship in the house? Okay. It's going to be like dynamite. Okay, TNT, because the caregiver, who is maybe an adult child or a sibling to the patient or a spouse, a wife or husband, and what is that going to do to that relationship? The caregiver is going to say, I have been so good to him or her, and after all of these months of taking care of them day and night, this is what I get. There's too much salt in the doll, right? And then you have to sit with them and say, they're not angry at the doll and the salt. They're not angry at you. They're angry at the situation. They're angry at the fact that they're dying. They don't want to die. Okay, and that's what they're angry about. So you, who is a trained Vaishnava's care volunteer, you know what's going on, and you can sit with the family and softly and gently explain what's going on. Okay. And then sometimes, but not always, they go through the patient as well as the family, but not necessarily at the same time in the same order, will go into depression. And believe it or not, depression is, no, I'm sorry. You know what? This whole chart is wrong. I'm looking at it going, no. Okay, after anger comes bargaining. This is backwards. After anger comes bargaining. Bargaining, not depression, okay? It's denial, anger, and then bargaining. And bargaining is like you're wheeling and dealing for more time, okay? The patient bargains with God, bargains with the doctor, bargains with somebody that they make it maybe apologize for something that they did 30 years ago. Maybe they didn't talk to their brother for 30 years and now they want to call up and apologize, because if they make up with, their brother George, then, the Lord will give them more time. Okay, so bargaining usually has to do with guilt, something they're guilty about. If a devotee hasn't been so steady with his or her rounds, oh, I'll chant, and I've heard this, I will chant 64 rounds every day if Srila Prabhupada will allow me to live another 30 years. But in the meantime, turn the TV on. There's some reruns I want to watch. Believe it or not. And this was a Prabhupada disciple. So, unfortunately, she passed away in the bargaining stage. Yeah. So it's denial, anger, bargaining. If it goes in this order, remember, it doesn't have to. It's not carved in stone. And after bargaining, you might see depression. Okay, depression. And the beginning of depression is really the beginning of acceptance. When they start becoming depressed over their situation, they're dying, their disease getting worse, not better. Okay, that means it's the beginning of accepting. And then finally, and there's no timeline to this, but they don't have a lot of time. Remember that. Usually in America, doctors don't refer patients to hospice until the very, very end of life, sometimes 6 days before they die, they get on hospice. Not of any fault of their own. It's the doctors and it's the oncologists, the cancer doctors that are doing this. It's very, very strange. But anyway, then if all is well in the world, then that patient will come to the stage of acceptance. And that doesn't mean the patient loves having cancer and loves the idea that he or she is going to die soon. It just means that they accept the fact that they have fought the disease and now they have to accept the fact that they didn't win the battle. They didn't win. And Krishna's desire is that they leave this body sooner than they had planned. And that's a lot of work to come to that stage. It's not easy. I've seen the senior most devotees struggle to get to this stage. And then at the very end get to it. And it's not an easy thing to do. So, you know, sitting by the bedside of a dying devotee is a very big responsibility. And if you could somehow get them to come to that acceptance stage, you will have done a very big service to a Vaishnava. Uh-oh. Okay. So this is the best thing I saw to how to survive grief if you're the one that's grieving, or even if you're the one that's helping someone to grieve. It says, cry whenever you need to. Okay. And this is, you could tell this to another person. Cry whenever you need to, scream, shout, lay on the floor, sob in the shower, be still, run, walk, create. So if they have any kind of artistic ability or any kind of outlet for their abilities, their creative abilities, have them do it, facilitate that. Okay, live your truth, share without fear. That's a big one. Share without fear. What are people most afraid of when they share and confide in someone? Anybody want to say? Why are people afraid to confide in someone?
Because they may judge them.
That's very good. They may judge them. And why else? If I told you my deep, dark secrets, okay, yes?
Maybe that you won't keep a confidence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a huge deal in our movement. And I stress this so much in my seminars. There is no confidentiality or extremes, a small amount of it. And, you know, if you were dying and you revealed your innermost thoughts and feelings, and even some spiritual doubts, would you want it to, you know, be on Dandavats the next day? I mean, we're like ridiculous on what we post and what we share and, you know, what we put out there and text. It's so easy now to break confidentiality. So we have to be careful. So share without fear. Listen and listen some more, because the dying patient is going to repeat and repeat and repeat until he or she has reached sound Krishna conscious conclusions. So it takes a lot of patience on our part to sit there and we can't say, but Prabhu, you already told me this story 2 days ago. Okay, don't do that. Just keep listening. Release your pain. If you're the one that's grieving, scream it out. Okay, breathe. I tell people to do a lot of therapeutic breathing. Be courageous. Throw away the map. Wander. Be real. Be compassionate. Read. Read Prabhupada's books. Seek friendship. Be vulnerable. Don't fear being broken. That's a big one. Don't fear being broken. You know, things happen in our life, and we come out broken on the other end. But if we have to believe that Krishna can fix us, and he can. I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada several times, but I wrote him after I moved into the temple in 1973, and I was 17 years old, and I had been there 3 months in the temple, and I was frustrated because I was chanting my rounds every day and doing all the service. And I was like, why aren't I a pure devotee yet? You know, it's been 3 months. So I wrote Srila Prabhupada a letter, and it was my second letter. And I said that, you know, but I've been chanting every day, Srila Prabhupada, and it's been 3 months, and I'm having so much trouble with my mind, you know. I did so much LSD in high school, and my mind is giving me so much trouble. And he wrote back this wonderful, huge letter. It was one of those blue airmail letters, and it was typed on both sides from the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And Prabhupada, it was very philosophical, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, I just need something more. I just needed like something softer, you know, I just needed like a spiritual hug, you know. So I turned it over on the other side. I'm reading, and then the last line was, so I can not give you any better advice for your problem. Simply chant Hare Krishna and everything will be all right. And it was. I felt like Prabhupada was hugging me, and, you know, a virtual hug. And I just, and it was fine. Everything turned out fine, you know, but I just needed that softness, and he knew that. So he ended the letter like that, you know. But yeah, he always knew what his disciples needed, you know, what they wanted and what they needed. And pretty amazing. But yeah, you know, then I realized that, you know, if my karma could break me, Krishna could fix me. So I like this last line, don't fear being broken. So normal grief. What is normal grief? First of all, does anybody have any questions before we move on to this definition? No? Okay. So there's something called normal grief. And grief, first of all, grief is the process of adjusting or accommodating to a new life without the deceased. That's the goal, I said before, of grief. I mean, why would we need to grieve if there wasn't a goal, right? We would just have this never-ending sadness in our life, but there's some kind of a goal to grieving. So grief is that process where you go through the pain. You have to experience the pain of loss in order to get through it. And then you have to reinvent your new life without that person in it any longer. And that takes time. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing. Normal grief is feeling the grief, the sadness that doesn't threaten your personal identification, your personal identity. It's like your husband dies and you're not like totally, caving in at the knees and, oh my God, I don't know who I am. I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know, I can't get out of bed in the morning because my husband died, I mean, that wouldn't be a normal reaction to that. You'd have to really, get help to work on your personal identity without your spouse present any longer. Normal grief doesn't threaten your sense of self-worth. Okay, it's not like you don't have any dignity or self-worth without that person in your life anymore. And I'm seeing that some devotees they've lost a parent and they're like in their 50s, and the parent, they were so close to that parent that they're feeling a lack of security with that parent gone, even though they're older in their 40s or 50s now. They can't live without that parent in their life. They're having a very difficult time. They have a sense, they don't have a sense of safety. And with any loss, you can have your hopes for future happiness can be shaken. And if I talk about this a lot in my seminar, that if you think about how much we think in the future, okay, we think a lot in the future. Like, next Kartik, I'm going to go to Vrindavan, hopefully COVID will be lifted by then. And Hare Krishna. So we can say, okay, next Kartik, I'm going to go to Vrindavan, or I'm going to go to the opening of TOVP. When my daughter gets married, I want to do this for their wedding, whatever, I want my son to get his, PhD at, Oxford, whatever it is, we think a lot in the future. So then all of a sudden, if you have your loved one die suddenly, or you expected the death, then your hopes for the future are now put to a halt. It's all of a sudden stopped. Okay, but we were going to go to TOVP opening together. Well, I guess that's not happening anymore. It's a loss. It's a loss to future plans. Okay, so there's a lot that goes along with one person's death, not just for the person who's dying, but for the family, for the spouse, for, the children, for the parents, for everybody involved in that death. Okay, so eventually the person who's grieving can remember their loved one without this intense pain. Every time you think of that person, eventually your heart is not going to feel like it's breaking. Okay, because you're going through a normal grief process. You will be able to put your heart back together again, even if there's some cracks in it with the glue, it's still going to be put together again, and you will be able to live a normal life, whatever that means to you. Everybody has a different, idea of what normal life means, but you will be able to go on with your life. Okay. This is from a grieving dad. This man lost his child there, and he wrote, "The weight of loss never goes away. We just learn how to carry it." So it's not like even in a normal grief situation, you'll get through it, but it's just never going to go away. Your loss will always be there. It's just that you'll know how to navigate through it eventually. Okay. And this one, really, I love this one. if you've ever been on trains in India. Okay, this was a Western woman, Suzanne Finnemore, who went to India, and she wrote, I guess she was grieving, and she wrote, much like trains in India, grief is a circular, irrational process with no discernible rhythm or timetable. Here it comes, there it goes. I thought that was awesome, how she compared it to the Indian timetable in train land. I thought that was great. But you know, it's pretty amazing. And here we talk about, you know, helping someone through grief. Presence is more important than anything you would say. You know, if there's somebody, if there's a death in the community at your temple, you know, or the first picture you can see, he's obviously this guy's father, and her husband passed away, and she has her son to take shelter of. So that's nice. And the picture below it, I guess the father passed away and her husband. So she's having to deal with a young child. There's a place near me outside of Philadelphia called Peter's Place. And Peter was a 12-year-old boy who died of cancer. And his parents opened up this enormous, beautiful facility called Peter's Place. And it's for grieving children and teenagers and young adults up to age 25. And I got trained as a volunteer counselor for the kids. And it's an amazing experience. It's amazing training. And now I'm getting all these years later, I'm getting my certification as a grief counselor, but not from this place, from another organization. But this place was, I think it got me started. It kind of planted the seed. So if there's anything like that for you in the city where you live, I would look into it, because the training was invaluable. So we'll talk more about children and grief in a little bit. So with this, if you have somebody in your community or family who passes away and you want to help the family members, and please don't forget the best friends, the close friends. I lost my best friend, Savitri Dasi, last year. She lived in the Philadelphia temple. We were best friends for 25 years. And believe me, it feels like I lost a sister. I was closer to her than I was to my sister at birth. So, you know, close friends, devotees, we can have a family, to us can mean many other people, you know, god brothers, god sisters. You know, she was like a sister to me, and it can really, I'm still grieving her loss. So if you want to reach out, don't forget the friends of the devotee as well. So presence, being a presence, is more important than anything you say. If you don't know what to say to somebody who's grieving, tell them that. Just say, you know, I really don't have the words to express how bad I feel for you. I'm so sorry for your loss. I am so sorry. But please know I'm here for you. And then be there for them. You know, don't just say it, because they will notice if you say it and you're not there. So, so just say, you know, I'm really sorry. Please accept my condolences. I'm so sorry. Please don't let your condolences be said on Facebook when you like something. I think that's the worst thing about technology, is when we announce that someone has died, which I do on my Vaishnava's Care website and Facebook page. But when somebody simply likes it, you know, that's not nearly as enough support for that grieving family. You know, if you don't feel comfortable talking to them over the phone, or if you live far away and you want to Zoom them or Skype them or whatever, or if you're not comfortable doing that, then take a piece of paper or a blank card and just write a note and send an old-fashioned snail mail, you know? I mean, that would mean a lot to me if somebody went to that trouble to do that. And, you know, yeah, that would mean a lot, you know. But if you're in the same city, for goodness sakes, you know, bring over prasadam, bring a garland from the deities, you know. And number two, expect a wide range of emotions. They are going to be like, you know, practically, you know, sobbing on the floor, and then the next second they could be laughing. It doesn't mean, oh, they're fine. Yeah, they're fine. They're going to be just fine. No, they'll be sobbing again on the floor the next hour. You know, it just goes around and around. Number three, listen attentively. There's nothing worse than pouring out your heart to somebody and they're, you know, either walk out of the room or they, you know, don't hear a word you say. And then you figure that out, that they're not really listening. And really attention is another form of love. It really is. And it's important. Number four, listen to their stories over and over again. They're going to tell the same stories over and over again. Number five, make specific and practical offers to help rather than vague offers to help. That's what I was saying before. Well, anytime you want to call me, here's my number, you know, they won't call. They won't want to bother you. So, you know, I'll be here on Tuesdays, and is that good for you? Does that work for you? Okay, what's a better day for you? I can't do Thursdays, but what about Fridays? You know, I mean, work it out so that it's good for both of you. Okay, number six, do not simplify the pain with Krishna conscious cliches such as, it's Krishna's arrangement, Prabhu. Okay, we all know that a blade of grass does not move without Krishna's will. We all know that. But if your wife or husband died suddenly, would you want to be told that? You know, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Or, you know, I've heard this one, your mother wasn't her body, why are you crying? Okay, this woman's mother, my god sister, died, and she was told that by the devotees in the community. Your mother wasn't her body, why are you crying? Well, because her mom just died, that's why. You know, we are still human. Okay, we're still human, and it's okay if we cry. It's okay. And yeah, it's okay. We're just human. So, number seven, there is no timetable to grief. We talked about that. However, if somebody's going on, okay, for years and years and years, okay, and they're not getting past a certain stage with their grief, there's a problem. Okay, there's a problem. And if that person was on hospice, perhaps the hospice can provide one-on-one counseling, or they cannot provide, but they could maybe suggest a counselor that could do one-on-one. Yeah, yeah, when we get to complicated grief, you'll see what I mean, how it's bad it couldn't get. If Okay. Number 8, share your positive memories of the deceased. That's how you can help them. A lot of people think if I talk about him, then it'll make her upset. Okay. Or if I talk about his wife, he'll get so upset. Usually it doesn't. It's the opposite. They want that person to be spoken about. They don't want them to be like out of sight, out of mind. They want them to be named. Name that loved one. You know, Bhakta Das Prabhu was such a good cook. I loved his blueberry halava. Do you happen to have his recipe for that? Oh, I do. In his recipe file we have in the kitchen. We both kept our favorite recipes. Oh my God, that's wonderful. Do you think I can get a copy of that? And we'll name it, after him, and then it'll be known as his blueberry halava. Oh, that's great. Maybe we could share it on our newsletter for the temple, and we'll call it, Bhakta Das's favorite blueberry halava. And we'll send it out to the whole community. Oh, I guarantee you his wife will love it. Just love it, because it's a way to have a legacy for her husband. It's a kind of, everyone deserves to have a legacy. And devotees really deserve it. They deserve to be remembered for something, and even if it's their blueberry halava, they deserve that. So I think that it's important that you discuss positive memories of the person that passed away. Number 9, let the bereaved know what you appreciate. Don't be afraid to mention his or her name. 10, remember special days, the birthday of the deceased. Remember a favorite festival day, holidays, etc. So in other words, Haribol, I know that Bhakta Das just loved Govardhan Puja. Are you coming this year? Oh, no, I can't. It would just remind me too much of him. Really? What if I came and picked you up and we got the okay to help with the hill, like Bhakta Das used to do every year? What if we did that? And we could bring his favorite little cows and we could decorate the hill with those. Would that be okay? And then you talk to her like that. Just ways to help her to get out of that depressing, what could be a depressing, sad day. She could do something in memory of her husband. And 11 is involve the hospice bereavement program for the family and close friends, if hospice team was involved. So yeah, if the patient was on hospice before he or she passed away, usually that hospice has a bereavement team program, and that program is offered to the family and close friends for 13 months. And that's because they want to get you through the first year anniversary and then a month later. So, because that's the hardest part, is getting through the first year anniversary. And they don't want to just leave you at that anniversary. They want to take you to 13 months. And then if you need help after that, they can try to get you some counseling. Now at Vaishnava's Care, we have if you go on Facebook and put in Vaishnava's Care grief support group, we have the only grief support group for devotees. And right now we have, I think, 140, 130, I don't know, something like that. 140, I believe, on there. And it's a closed Facebook group. You have to promise to follow confidentiality and you have to answer 3 more questions, like yes, no questions. Do you promise to do this, this? And then you're in. We accept you as a member, and you can come on and reveal your mind and your grief and your loss and who you're grieving for and like that. And then some of the devotees kind of hook up with each other because they have a similar loss. And then we also have Janaki Devi Dasi. She has been a social worker and counselor with her master's degree for many years, many years. And she's been a devotee since, I believe, 1982. And she lives in North Carolina. And she is a volunteer for Vaishnava's Care. And I will refer devotees to her who need one-on-one counseling, usually some kind of grief counseling. But anyway, we're offering those 2 things, the private grief support group and the one-on-one counseling if Janaki has openings. Okay. Okay, so here we're back to confidentiality. When we are helping a grieving devotee, we need to keep confidentiality. Same thing when we're taking care of dying devotees. Whatever they tell you, you take it with you until our grave. Our ashes are in the Jamuna. And unless he or she talks about homicide or suicide. In other words, if you're dealing with a family member who just lost a loved one, and he says to you, you know what, I got a gun, and I'm really thinking that I'm going to kill my kids, and this way they won't have to grow up without a mother, and then I'm going to shoot myself, and that's the best thing for my family. You immediately tell somebody, tell somebody. There's, you tell the authorities, the legal authorities, the local police, you tell somebody, you tell the local authority at the temple president, you tell the GBC, you tell whoever in your community will listen. And yeah, because that's a serious thing. Okay, so now we're just going to talk about what is complicated grief. Do we want to take a break first, or are we okay to go on for a little bit? Sukha Sugari?
Yes, Mataji. Organizer Mataji, I would like to hear.
So we should just go on?
Yes, Mataji. I'm just wondering, are we, I mean, do we have a time on how long we can go on? On how long this will go?
Well, I have an appointment at 2:00, so I have to go. What time is it now? 12:20?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I really didn't want to go over 1:30.
Oh, okay, Mataji.
Or I can end it sooner if you wanted.
I'm just thinking, Mataji, could we continue a part 2? Is that possible?
I can.
I don't know. Would that, I mean, like tomorrow, is that possible? I don't know about everybody else's. How.
Tomorrow? I didn't know that. Okay.
Or you want to do it all
Hare
in
Krishna,
one?
Hare Krishna Mataji, we have already scheduled someone for tomorrow and day after. Sangita Mataji, if it's okay for you, then can we do part 2 on Thursday, same time?
Thursday. Same time, Thursday.
11 AST.
Okay. So let me just see what else I've got. Yeah, we have quite a bit. Okay. Are you interested in talking about children and grief? How children grieve according to their ages? Do you think it's something that you would need?
Mataji, I think with the current situation, maybe we can go into that children grieving at a later point of time, Mataji. I was thinking more on the lines of how, as a devotee, we can cope with, the laws. And some scriptural references or things like that, which will give us more strength at this time. So.
Well, okay, if we take out the part about the children, because you will be needing that at some point in your communities, because you will have children involved in losses for sure. But how long have we been going? We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. So do you want to, in my book, at the end of my book, there's a lot of scriptural evidence of Prabhupada speaking about death. I don't know what else. We could read those and discuss that, and then here, can you see on the screen, it says ideas to support the grieving. We can just talk about that quickly.
I think that would be important.
Yeah.
I think that would be important for us who want to give that support. Be something that we could, some actual, physical thing or something that we can actually do.
Yeah. So was there a memorial service yet?
Yes, there
Yeah,
was.
everything is done, Mataji. It was on Wednesday. Memorial service is done.
Okay. So what is the woman's name?
Preeti Vilasini Devi Dasi.
Kirti Vilasini?
Preeti Vilasini.
Oh, Priti. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So Priti. So is anybody staying with her now? Is she living by herself?
Yeah, no. Family members are all there with her, and she's getting a lot of help. Physical thing. She is getting help from Chicago Temple, and yes, we all devotees are also calling her, texting her off and on, and inquiring about her well-being.
Okay, so she lives by herself though, right?
Yeah, they were only husband and wife, but now she has all her family members, her brother-in-law, her sister, her parents, her in-laws, everybody's there with her right now.
Yeah, but that's not going to be forever. I mean, eventually they're going to go back to India.
Yeah, so when they'll go back, then we devotees will take turn and stay with her, and let's see how it goes.
Did you ask her if that's what she wants?
Not exactly, but yeah, planning to stay with her, a few days.
Okay. Yeah. Always ask the person what they want,
Yeah.
She's in a situation where she has absolutely no control over what's happening to her life. And then all of a sudden devotees come in and tell her what they're going to be doing. And without asking her, she'll feel even more out of control. You know what I mean? So, so you always want to ask, like, her options, we can have this person stay and this night, or no people can stay, or we can just come and give you prasadam during the day, or, like just give her a bunch of options and ask her what she wants. The problem is when people are grieving is that, like, the first 6 weeks, people usually pay them a visit and call them and send cards and emails and everything. And then after 6 weeks, everything stops and everybody else's life goes on. And there's just, they come home to an empty house, and that's what's really sad. And that's when things start to get really depressing for the person that's the person that's survived, like usually the spouse, and especially if there's no children, then the house is just so empty, and and that's when the depression might start. So if you can remember that, like it's really 6 weeks later when nobody is coming anymore, nobody's calling, things get really quiet. That's when they need the devotees the most.
Sure. Sure,
And then,
Mataji.
and
Thank
then
you.
also, I don't know if she needs a fundraiser.
Yeah, that I've already asked, and she said that she's good with it. She doesn't need that.
She doesn't need that. Okay. And how about any kind of help with paperwork, legal
Yeah,
thing?
that also I've asked her, and her brother-in-law, her husband's brother is helping her out.
Okay.
So, yeah, but still we'll be in touch with that particular point also.
Okay. And was there like a feast or anything at the temple in for the memorial service? Did you do that?
Um, Devotees came to that funeral session, but after that, there was just some kirtan session in Chicago temple because devotees are not congregating because of this COVID thing. So that's also an additional point where, these feast things cannot be done. But
You can
yes, few
do it on
temples like in
Zoom.
Atlanta, they did it. In Chicago, they did it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it on Zoom,
Yeah. Yes.
Somebody can, yeah, she would like that. And yeah, you can do it over Zoom. It's not the same, but it's still nice, like, you know what I'm saying? Because we've had one this year. We've had a couple this year, actually, in Philadelphia, and we did it from the temple, and then everyone tuned in from their houses and, said some things, paid their homages and, read their homages. So you might want to consider that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion, Mataji.
And then you know what else is nice? Like, um, e- if it can be recorded, and then um, everyone who wrote, who said something, who spoke or read something in his honor, if you could have it typed out and put into a book, a memory book, like even if it's just a scrapbook with some pictures of the devotee who spoke or something like that, and then given to her.
Yeah, those recording sessions we have already forwarded to her, and she is hearing all those recording sessions. Those devotees who have paid their homage, and every day in the morning also, some devotees, volunteer for 10-15 minutes and they are still paying their tribute. And she is well aware of, and she's getting all those recordings and even the messages on Zoom that we had. So she got everything.
I was thinking more like a tangible book, like a memory book that you can make for her. You know what I mean? With a transcription of the homages, with
Sure.
pictures in it. Yeah. And you can make it nice and pretty with, scrapbook stickers and things, and she can have something to look back at, and she can add her own memories to it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yes.
the thing is now in grief work is to leave a legacy of that person. And that's always a good one to do. Or if you want to add other things to a legacy scrapbook for her. I don't know if anybody has other pictures of him and, maybe the two of them serving together. things like that. But
Yeah, we do have some pictures of her
she,
in her book. Yes, we do have them.
oh, that would be great. That would be so good. And you can get her started on it and have extra pages so she can add to it. That would be really nice for her to have, and then she could, continue with it as the years go on and add memories to it. Anyway, just an idea. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
And if she feels, maybe in time that she would like one-on-one counseling with Janaki, you can put her in touch with me and I'll connect her to Janaki. Okay.
Sure.
And then if she wants to get on the Vaishnava's Care Grief Support Group, and I just put out an advertisement last night on that group that I'd like to have a monthly live session, so that whoever wants to get on there can one day or night, a month, and they can discuss things and I'll just facilitate it. I won't, speak on their behalf. They're going to have to speak up to each other. So if she wants to be a part of that, she's welcome to do that as well. But it might be too soon.
Sure, we'll pass on the message, definitely.
Yeah, but it's really too soon. She shouldn't really join a group yet, but
She is a very active member, the one of our pillar of Bhakti Sangha. So we are planning to get her as soon as back to her normal services. She used to give a lot of classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Very knowledgeable, very scholarly girl and very well composed and within this grief stage. So definitely, we'll call her back to our Bhakti Sangha and probably she'll be back to her normal routine. But yes, as you suggested, I'll pass on the message to her, definitely.
All right. I'm just looking. Hold on one sec. I'll be right there. Trying to find a newer version of my book, but I can only find the first edition. But I wanted to leave you with a couple of things.
Mataji, do we have like 5 to 10 minutes for any questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can do that. I wanted to, go ahead. It's okay. I just wanted to look at a couple of things at the end of the book, but we can do questions. Sure. I can take down one thing. Oh, this is another thing I wanted to mention. You see these, the vigil candles on the screen? Can everybody see that?
Yes, Mata.
Okay, so this is a picture in Hillsborough, North Carolina, when I was living down there. And this was the first Sunday of Kartik a few years back, 2015. And we had just lost a godbrother of mine who died there in the hospice from cancer. And his family, 2 of his brothers were initiated by different gurus, and his 86-year-old mother was a devotee, and he had made several members of his family, near and far, devotees. So, so I thought to have a candlelight vigil in his honor and in honor of whoever the families have lost in the past. because what happens in a community when there's a loss, um, new loss brings on memories of past losses. So even if a devotee will die in your community, you will all of a sudden be thinking of, wow, I remember when my grandmother died when I was 10, and you won't understand it. Well, why is this happening? But it does happen. So new loss brings on past losses, and all of that pain can surface. So we had what we have on the vaishnavascare.org website are 14 slideshows that a devotee, Dayavira Prabhu down in Hillsborough, makes for me. And every time a devotee passes away, I send him the name and the picture. And when he gets 20 pictures, he makes another slideshow honoring the departed Vaishnavas. So you can go on vaishnavascare.org and you can see the slideshows. They only take 1 minute, 60 seconds per each slideshow. So what we did was Bir Krishna Maharaj agreed to give a Sunday feast class on death and dying. And then we showed how many slideshows we had at the time. And then I gave everybody a vigil candle, and it looks just like these in the lower left-hand corner. You get them on Amazon.com. You look up a box of candlelight vigil, vigil candles. And they come in a box of 100. You can get smaller, bigger boxes, but I usually order 100. And it comes with these cardboard little circles that you can put the candle through so that they don't drip on your hand. So we stood in this big circle, and Bir Krishna Maharaj, I lit his candle, and he said, I'm lighting this candle on behalf of Bhaktitirtha Swami and Brahmananda Prabhu. And then he lit the candle next to him with his candle, and that person said, I'm lighting this candle on behalf of my father. And then he lit the candle next to him, and it went around and around and around. And even the children that were like 8 years old and older took part in it. And they said, I'm lighting this for my grandparents. I'm lighting this for my aunt, whoever. And it was very, very beautiful, as you can see in the picture, because it was a Sunday evening, first Sunday Kartik of Kartik. And then I had a table in the middle with 2 trays of sand, just like at Damodar prayers. And a devotee took out his guitar and he has a beautiful voice, and he started chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So we had like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the Maha Mantra. And then one by one, everybody put their candles into the sand tray. And we had prasadam. And it was a beautiful ceremony. So many people came up and said how much they got out of this ceremony. And it was a cleansing for my godbrother's family who just lost their son and brother. And it was also a community cleansing because they got to light candles on behalf of their relatives that died, some of them decades before. So it was a community healing and it was an individual healing. So I really suggest that you do something like this. A box of 100 of these vigil candles on Amazon costs $12.99. So it's not a big investment. And it's really, really nice for the community. I just want to end on this note before the questions, that in the 1970s in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada said the following in a Bhagavatam class. I was only 17 years old and I never wrote it down, but for some reason, Krishna knew I needed to know this in the future, so I always remembered it. And this is actually Prabhupada in the old Los Angeles temple room. He said, for a devotee, death is just like sleeping. He closes his eyes, and when he opens them, there is Krishna. It is so nice. And he said it just like that. He put his hand up like this, and he said, he closes his eyes, and when he opens them, and he opened them really wide, and he got a big smile, and he said, there is Krishna. It is so nice. So he explained death for a devotee right there, just like sleeping. And all of a sudden you wake up and there's Krishna and all your friends. And everything is beautiful and wonderful and perfect. So, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for the last note. Mataji, I just have this one question. Sometimes there is this, there are people who ask things like, maybe something could have been done to intervene, maybe something, we overlooked or neglected or something like that, Mataji. But as a devotee, we know that, in spite of our best efforts, Krishna is in control of everything. So how do we handle such questions, Mataji?
It's called the would haves and should haves. And mostly everybody goes through it after a death, even when it's an expected death. Even if you know that's your relative is going to die and he or she is on hospice for a year and you're there taking care of him every day. And then when he does pass away, sometimes you're in shock. Even though you've been taking care of them for a year, you're still in shock. And along with that shock can be, and that's the mind in that denial stage, like you just can't believe it. You can't believe this is happening, even though you've known about it and been expecting it, and so along with that goes, I would have or should have. Why didn't I? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I take him to the doctor sooner? Maybe if I had taken him sooner, maybe we could have gone to that other doctor, and you just beat yourself up. And it's so unfair to do that to yourself, because ask that person, what if you did that? What if you did what you're saying? Would anything have changed? No, it wouldn't have. It really wouldn't have, because everything is destiny. Everything was meant to be. And this is what Krishna wanted. So nothing would have changed. And then let them talk it out. Let them say, if I had taken him sooner, if I had only known he had a heart condition, maybe he didn't have a heart condition. Maybe Krishna just had his heart stop. From the time we're born, we're born with a certain amount of heartbeats, right? And then when it's to that point, then that's it, it's done. So you can say all the would haves and should haves, and I could have had, and I could have done, but it wouldn't have changed anything. And ask them, okay, what would you have done differently? And do you think that would have changed it? Wouldn't have. It's not fair to do that to themselves.
Thanks, Mataji. I lost my father 2 years back, and my mom is like you said, she had in fact told me that for the first 6 months, in fact, she didn't feel anything. But now she says after 1 year, I don't know, it's just hitting so hard on me. And sometimes, she cared for my dad a lot, like, because my dad had some health condition before he passed away, and she cared for him day and night. And the way she cared, I always think that I've never seen somebody care like that for their loved ones. Like, she lost her sleep, everything, like she gave 24/7 to my dad. I mean, all the attention. But still she feels I should have done that more. I should have done that, like those feelings she has. And I keep telling her, Mom, you did your best. I mean, I don't know anybody who did like this, but still she feels I should have done this. That's why I was thinking.
Oh, it's a shame. It's a shame, but it's very common for people to feel guilty after the death. And, if somehow you can just make her understand she did the best she could with what she knew at the time. She did the best she could. And that she was a really good caregiver. And that you think that your father really appreciated what she did.
Yeah, my dad always thanked her because, he was kind of not too mobile towards his end of his life. So he always said, you're doing so much, but still, I don't know, somewhere she feels that something is lacking like that, Mataji. So
No, it's very typical though. I'm not surprised to hear it, but somehow or other she needs to journal. Does she journal?
no, Mataji, she's my mom is like 69 now, and she's like a very traditional Indian, and I don't know, in Indian cultures they journal and do things like that. But yeah, I mean, she totally now spends her time reading scriptures, and all the time she's trying to do Bhagavatam study, or Ramayana, things like that. But
Okay.
she's not into journaling or things like that specifically, Mataji.
But still, journaling, Prabhupada even told us that writing was good for self-realization.
Sure, Mataji.
And writing daily, So if she could just, and she doesn't have to do it every day. It's not like the book owns you. You own the book, but it's whenever, she's using her time wisely to study the scriptures, but she still has these emotional knots in her heart that she needs to untie, and that means writing might help her. If she could, like right now she's feeling, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that for him? But if she could have a little journal or just a notebook to write down a list of everything she did do for him. And then if she saw it in writing, maybe she would say, wow, I really did do a lot for him. Why am I feeling like this? I don't need to feel guilty like this. This is just the mind. And kick it out. Just kick it out. And, I was just reading where Prabhupada said, he wrote to one of my godbrothers and he said, you are telling me that you have so many obstacles and or so many blockage, I think he used the word. And he said, but with one swift kick of my boot, I can get rid of those blockages, and so I'm thinking of that, because if she could just write down what it is her mind is feeling, she could just get rid of it. Prabhupada could just kick it out, and it's good on one hand that she's reading the scriptures. That's great. That's what she needs to do. But if she can just take a couple of minutes every evening, maybe, and write a couple of things in her journal, it might really help her to, take it out of her head, take it out of her mind. I mean, Prabhupada really did recommend writing for self-realization.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. I will pass on the message.
I mean, maybe if you got her like a little gift of a notebook or something with a special pen, and it would mean a lot coming from you, and then tell her what it's for. Maybe she'll take it up.
Sure, Mataji.
I'm just suggesting it. You know her better than I do. So, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My name is Parneshwari Lakshmi Devi Dasi.
Wait, tell me again, you are who? I'm
My name
very.
is Parneshwari Lakshmi.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I have, I guess, a question in that kind of same sense. You know, sometimes I'm thinking that as culturally we have sometimes, you know, coming from a religious background or whatever, Vedic background, whatever you want to call it, we have a tendency of having that idea that this is just a natural part of life, kind of get over it. Whereas, you know, sometimes, you know, we're spiritual being, just that whole understanding that we're not this body. And sometimes that comes in conflict with our idea of trying to give, or trying to for ourselves, whether it be grief or whether it be anything else. This is just our karma. We have to go through this. So how do we get past that thought? How do we get past that thought and actually do something active to, in our own grief, in our own, you know, whatever things we might have? Does that make sense? I don't know if my question makes sense.
I don't know if that makes sense. Can you just narrow it down to like one question?
Yeah, so my question is, sometimes I think there's a cultural conflict, like for myself, I will say, because we have this theoretical understanding that we're, you know, like you said, we're not this body and the karma happens and we just have to go through with it. And that's one side, right? And then the other side is, like you said, we're human beings and we have to allow ourselves to go through these the grief or the anger, whatever, that, you know, because of losing a loved one or something. So how do we reconcile those two different aspects of our personality? Does that make sense better?
Yes, yes. And who is your spiritual master?
Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj.
Okay, one of my favorites. I asked because sometimes, anyway, yeah, he would be very understanding of loss and grief. He was very, he wanted me to build the hospice in Mayapur, actually, after we made a presentation in 2000. He's so incredible, so much empathy. Anyway, when I first joined the movement in 72, I was 16, and I was told, you know, at that time, you know, about loss and grief. I mean, there was no loss and grief. There was none. I mean, even when Prabhupada left the planet, as a society, we weren't really given the time or permission to grieve collectively. And it was very unfortunate because we lost so many devotees, so many. And then I was only 21 years old when Prabhupada left. And I saw him so many times. I was always in either Los Angeles temple or Hawaii temple. And he was there a lot in those two places. So I got a lot of mercy. But so I was 21. And then I realized as the decades went on, and somehow or other, Krishna threw me into the service, that we all need to grieve. And most of us need to grieve. Maybe not all of us, maybe someone is of the frame of mind that you don't need to grieve a loss, you know, that we're not these bodies and blah, blah. Okay, great. If that's where they're at, then that's fine. I have never met anyone on that level, to be honest. And I've taken care of gurus' mothers. I've taken care of gurus. I've taken care of sannyasis. And I've never met anybody that's on that level. they go through some kind of grief process when they find out they're going to die, or their beloved mother is going to die. Uh, we have a heart. We have a heart, and we have attachments to these people, and some of us, and we, um, you know, we feel loss and separation, and you know, it's okay to feel that. And we can't pretend to be something that we're not. We can't pretend to be on a platform in Krishna consciousness that we're not on. You know, it's okay to feel human emotion of loss and grief. And it's okay to feel sadness and separation when somebody we know passes away. I mean, so far we've had 3 Prabhupada disciples leave in one day, uh, at least twice. And we've had 3 Prabhupada disciples leave in 1 week, many times. And it's sad to me because when we don't have any more Prabhupada disciples on the planet, who will speak about Prabhupada anymore? Who will, you know, that's why all the next generation needs to know Prabhupada, which can be done. You can know Prabhupada, even if you've never seen him personally. You can know him. You can love him. He can love you. He can reveal himself to you within your heart. He's in the heart of his devotee, not just his disciples. Okay, and he said that he can reveal himself through his books, and you know, the guru can talk to you through devotees, through non-devotees. He can speak to you in many ways. So, you know, but it's kind of frightening to me to think of when there's no more Prabhupada disciples left. And, you know, I don't know, I just think that the 2nd generation, the 3rd generation, every generation after that for 10,000 more years can get to know Srila Prabhupada just as we know him. And carry on all of his teachings. You asked how you can kind of get the 2 lives or 2 worlds together. Yeah, I used to think when I was a new devotee that, you know, there's nothing worse than being old and not being a pure devotee. I used to think I can't think of anything worse than being old and not being a pure devotee and facing death soon. And here I am, old, and I'm not a pure devotee. And I feel very strongly that death could be around the corner. And I'm not a pure devotee. And believe me, my God sisters and I speak about this often. It's a reality. It's a reality by Srila Prabhupada's grace that we're understanding that death is around the corner. You know, like Yudhishthira Maharaj said, the greatest wonder in this world, most fantastic thing is that we're seeing people die all around us, but we don't think we're ever going to die. So it's a fantastic, wonderful, mystical thing that because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we're able to understand that we're going to die. Death is imminent. So we have to prepare for it. We have to live our life for it. We have to prepare. And so when it happens, we can just close our eyes, and when we open them, there is Krishna. Prabhupada said a lot of really nice things about it. I remember he said that that he will stand in the middle. Krishna will be on one side and we will be on the other side. And he said, I will take your hand and Krishna's hand and I will join them together. And that's sweet. It's so sweet. So thank you.
Thank
So,
you, Mataji. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a lot to look forward to. Going back to Godhead is no small achievement, but you know, then there's Krishna's mercy whenever we get discouraged and think, oh, I'm not going back, not in this life. But then we think, then there's Krishna's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy. You know, Krishna misses us a lot more than we miss him, believe me. So, anything else? Any other comments, realizations you'd like to share about death and dying? So,
Hare Krishna. So sorry.
Hare Krishna, go ahead.
Yes, Mataji. I really appreciate what you have been explaining to us. It's been very difficult for me at different times. I lost my mother and my father in 2015.
Oh, sorry.
I'm a new devotee in training. I have not been initiated, and I'm working toward that goal. So I didn't know really how to approach it, and I didn't grieve maybe for 2 years after. And so both my parents died in 2015, 6 months apart. My sister died the next year. And then I felt like my best friend died because she had to leave for 2 years for job before. And so I was basically alone. And the way you explained it is so heartfelt and clear because people didn't understand. I couldn't open boxes that I had taken from my mother's home for 3 years. I couldn't go through them. And it wasn't until I started chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. I started out by chant because I was always a meditator. I chanted an hour a day. And then I talked to one of the Prabhujis at the temple that I attend here in Atlanta. My name is Flavia. I'm so sorry for not introducing myself. And after about 2 weeks, one day I started crying. I mean, uncontrollably sobbing. And I wouldn't stop chanting though. I kept on just Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And I just kept on. And I was crying and so much pain. And because I missed my mother and I felt it and I saw it, but I didn't stop chanting. And from that point on, every day I chanted and chanted and chanted. This was in 2017. And that was when I began. And from then, I've continued. So I totally understand, especially when you said, Srila Prabhupada wrote you the letter and said, just keep chanting. And before I even knew this, I kept chanting. And when I first started attending the temple, because of my appearance, everyone thought I was just from another town. And I knew no one, and no one spoke to me except Jagannath and Krishna. And I would look at them and Jagannath would say, you're supposed to be here. Because I didn't know who he was. I asked Amataji one day, I said, who is this deity? I don't know them. Because I didn't know anything. I just started coming. And Jagannath would say, you're going to be okay. You don't have to know anyone. You know me. You know me. And I would smile like I was an idiot looking at Jagannath in the temple with not knowing anyone. And no one spoke to me for months because they didn't know. They just thought I was a Mataji that was from somewhere else. And I kept coming every Sunday. And every time there was a special program. And one day I got enough nerve to speak out to the same Prabhuji that asked told me to chant, start out with, he said to start out just 1 hour. I said, well, I meditate, so I'll meditate and then I'll chant, or I'll vice versa. And then I asked him every Sunday, please introduce me to devotees. I want association. And he kept forgetting. And I know now that was a lesson because I needed to know I don't need anyone but Krishna. I don't need anyone but Srila Prabhupada to guide me. He's my guru until I have a guru. And I learned so much. And just you talking brought all this back to me. And I'm so grateful. And I'm just, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Do you know Balabhadra Prabhu in Atlanta?
Yes, I love him. He's one of the ones that reached
Yeah.
out to me after, he says, oh, I thought you were from somewhere else. He said, I never knew, they would nod, but no one, I didn't have any conversations. So yes, I love him and his wonderful Prabhu, Mataji Gandhari. We speak often on the phone now.
All right,
So
good.
yeah.
Okay. I was going to suggest that you become friends with them because they're
Yes, yes.
wonderful. Yeah, he's the temple president here in Philadelphia.
Yes, and so I
Yeah.
have several now. Now I have several different people that have began to mentor me. I was able to join a few groups before COVID and attend classes. So now I'm doing classes online. But yes, I've been able to be very graced with the association of all these wonderful, wonderful devotees, and I'm learning.
Good.
And just thank you so much. And I really appreciate this session.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you. I'm glad to have met you.
Very much. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I wanted to do we have a few minutes does anybody else have a question? Anybody? Okay. Do we have a few minutes? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada. Actually, this is like non-devotee, but my husband's friend, he lost his father and grandmother. So how can we help them in grieving, in the same way, or because they are not Krishna conscious. So how to deal in with non-devotees?
Are they here in America?
Yes, Mataji.
Hmm.
But he went to India to visit his father. He was there at the last moment of his father.
Oh, that's good.
But still he's grieving.
Yeah. Well, prasadam is always, Prabhupada said prasadam is our secret weapon. So, a lot of people send fruit baskets. So you can make a fruit basket for them, but make sure everything's ripe and you can offer it. And then they get prasadam.
They're not here in Atlanta. They are in Chicago, actually. So
you can still do it.
Oh, okay, Mataji.
Yeah. You go on 1-800-Flowers and you can pick out either flowers or you can pick out fruit baskets and you can send it that way. It's a little more pricey than if you're going to the store and making it up yourself, but still, and then you do Manasa Seva, where you do service in your mind and you close your eyes and you can offer it to the deities and it'll still get accepted. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Or can I just say one more thing? Like your husband works with him, right?
No, they studied together.
Ah, okay. All right. Because you can send like are you in the same city as him now?
No, Mataji. We are in Atlanta, they are in Chicago.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. I would do the flowers or the fruit and offer it in your mind. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so there's in the end of my book, the chapter called Grieving, Healing, and Rejoicing for the Vaishnava. There's some things I just wanted to mention before we go, but it's understanding the grief reaction. And so grief is sometimes described as the emotional reaction to a great loss, while mourning is how one exhibits those feelings of grief. So that's the difference between grief and mourning. So mourning is the actual, how you actually exhibit that grief. Okay, so grief is a feeling and mourning is more the actual event. Okay, and so grieving is a natural process that's necessary in order to heal from intense feelings of sadness when losing a loved one. So it goes on and it says that, you know, you often have physical feelings when you're grieving. You can get headaches, migraines, muscle pain, bone pain. You can sleep too much or sleep too little. All of a sudden you can have insomnia and it can last for years, or you can just find yourself sleeping all the time. Maybe you eat too much or you eat nothing, and you become dehydrated and have malnutrition. It can really, really affect your physical well-being. You can become very sick from grieving. Let's see. Yeah, here also it's saying that you have 6 to 8 weeks after the death is just a period of adjustment. And then 6 to 8 weeks into it, then you come home to an empty house and you feel weak and anxious and depressed and fatigued. You have mood changes, excessive crying, a change of your eating habits. You can feel confused and decreased memory. You have a decreased ability to concentrate. So expect to see if somebody in your community passes away and the family is left behind, expect to see some of these symptoms with that family. It might not be every family member, but how we grieve has a lot to do with our age, our gender. Men will grieve different than women will. In general, it has to do with our personality. It has to do with our upbringing and our culture. Okay, all those things are have to have something to do with when I was there taking care of Bhakti Tirtha Swami at the end of his life in Gitanagari. I had to pronounce him leaving his body, which was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. I was standing behind him. Here was his head, the back of his head, and I was behind the back of his head. And I was listening with my stethoscope to his heart stopping. And the room was packed. And Maharaj had told Radhanath Swami, I want to die in your arms. So just then, Radhanath Swami stood up and left the room. And I had a feeling that Bhakti Tirtha Swami's heart was beating for the last time. So I stood up real fast. I said, this is it. His heart just is going to stop. It was just super soul. It was nothing, that I have these psychic abilities. It was nothing like that. I just had a feeling. And so I asked his disciple who had the tray of Tulsi and Vrindavan dust and everything. I said, put it on him now. And I said, somebody go and get Radhanath Swami immediately. So they ran and got him and he ran back in and he made it just in time, just in time to die, have him die in his arms. And these these things that are very important to a dying devotee, or dying anybody who's leaving. A last wish like that. He wanted to die in Maharaj's arms, and these things become extremely important. So Krishna arranged that somehow I just said, get him back here. This is his last breath. It was really Krishna. And so so the tasks of the bereaved, okay, what happens to those who are left behind to grieve? So the bereaved need to accept the reality of their loss. Easier said than done, okay? Talking with someone who truly cares about his or her grief can help accomplish this. Denial is of one's sorrow does not pave the road to a successful grief outcome. Only honest recognition of one's pain can help accomplish this. You have to go through the pain of the death in order to come out on the other side. You can't just go around it. You can't ignore it. It doesn't exist. You have to go through it. You have to go through it. So then in the book, I tell how you can do that, okay, or how we can help the other person to do that. All right, I'm not going to get into all that now. The bereaved need to be encouraged to ask for assistance, okay? They shouldn't feel like they're a burden to anyone. That's why we need a Vaishnava's care team in every town and village. They need to have on their refrigerator the team leader's name and phone number. They need to have all the volunteers in that team listed so that they can get in touch with any of them at any time. The bereaved need our honesty. Okay, they don't need for us to lie to them in any way. They need our honesty. It's never easy to console the grieving. It is not uncommon to be at a loss for words. So just say, like I said before, I don't know what to say to you, but I'm here for you. What is it that you need? What can I do for you? Okay. And the bereaved need to share their memories. They need to keep the memories alive, okay, so they can remember their loved one. The bereaved they need continued support, not just a couple weeks after the death. They need continued support. Okay, so as Jim Swami once said here in Philadelphia when a devotee's brother died, and he was a devotee himself, and he said, whenever a devotee leaves, whenever a devotee passes away, this world becomes a little more inauspicious. So every time a devotee leaves, this world becomes a little more inauspicious. So it's like another light has gone out, another light. Every devotee in this world is like a light. And when he or she leaves, it's like the light has gone out and the world's become a little darker. So we have to remind the loved ones of that truth and see how we can help them to go through the pain of loss and how we can help them to live their life now without that person present any longer. Okay, for us, we'll miss that person in Artik or giving class or whatever, but that other devotee needs to come home every single day without that person present. Very, very difficult. So we need to help them to learn how to get through life without that person present. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. It's a really help to also how to deal with that this situation, grief situation with the devotees and ourselves. Thank you so much. Not only we lost how means devotee community, father, mother, or sister. Sometimes we also grieve in so many ways. Means so many small items. Mataji is the same thing when devotee have that difficult situation. How we deal with them.
Yeah, there's losses every day in this world, not just the loss from death. Of course, that's probably one of the most difficult that we face in this world. But, you know, we really need to understand that we go through losses all the time, especially now with COVID. And, you know, we have a loss of our basic freedoms. You know, we can't do the things that we want to do. We can't have more than 9 people at the temple at a time. We can't, you know, sit and have prasadam together after, you know, after a big, you know, cooking all day. And then you have, you know, it was Prabhupada's disappearance day, and every year they have me make the announcements and do the whole program. And then after I had to say, well, thank you for coming. It's 12:30, and can you just pick up your containers and go home? You know, and it was such a letdown because after a festival, even if it's Prabhupada's disappearance day, which is the most difficult day of the year for some of his disciples. But, you know, we just felt like, wow, now we can't even take prasadam together, you know, on such a difficult day. So, you know, there's losses on so many levels, and, you know, everything's changed. We have so many changes in our life. And that's just a small example that on his disappearance day, on my guru's disappearance day, we couldn't even, you know, have prasadam together, sit together, you know, everything's different. So, yeah, it's been a hard year for everybody. And yeah, so anyway, I wish everyone well. Please stay safe and stay healthy, and take this seriously with COVID. It is a very serious virus, and I don't know how these vaccines are going to work. So be careful. Okay.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you so much. Thank you so much, Mataji, for your association in our call. We really appreciate for your time, Mataji. Thank you.
I appreciate you asking me to do this. Thank you very, very much. And let me know if I could be of any service again. Okay. I would like to hear from anybody in Houston who, I don't know who the team leader is. I don't know anything. So if anybody wants to contact me about that team and revamping it, I'm open to that. Okay.
Yes, sir, Mataji.
Okay. We could always do another weekend seminar there, or, you know, over Zoom until we, you know, right now I'm working on a lot of teams for Latin America, but I can always take time to do Houston. Is Damayanti on here?
Yes, Mataji.
Is Damayanti here today?
Damayanti Mataji. I don't see Mataji.
From Austin? She was thinking about putting, like having me do a weekend seminar for Austin, Houston, Dallas, and yeah, another one in Texas. I can't remember. But anyway, 4 cities where they have the 4 temples. And we can have a hospice seminar on Zoom. So if you're interested, then maybe you could contact Damayanti about that.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, for informing.
Okay. All right. Take care. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Now we can end our call, paying our obeisances to all the devotees and Mataji, Hare Krishna Gita Mataji. Vansakalpataruvesya kripa sindhu bevacha patita nama pavanebhyo Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thanks
Thank you
again.
so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.